Hi, I'm Kelly from Kelly Jones Jewellery. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make these earrings. Now this is a remake of the first video that I ever made. This is the original design of the first video that I did. I only did one earring and I didn't talk over the video. I put music in. So I'm hoping I can explain a little bit more as I go along to you and show you how to do the second one. I had a lot of people asking how to make the second one, but I wasn't very confident with my videos at the time. So I hope I've cleared that up with you all now. I've put a list in the description below of everything you'll need to make these earrings. There's also a link to my Etsy shop, which is kellyjonesjewellery.com, and that's where I sell all my jewellery and my written tutorials. And there's a link to my Facebook and Instagram on there as well. To make these earrings you'll need 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge, and I've cut 6 lengths at 12 inches each, that's 30.5 centimetres. You'll need 0.315mm weaving wire, which is 28 gauge. That's what I prefer. You can use a step up or below any of these gauges. And you'll need about 400 centimetres. I've wound mine onto a bobbin. If you don't have a bobbin, you can just cut lengths as you go. I prefer to use a bobbin because it just stops the wire flailing about. It just makes it a bit easier to handle. For these earrings, I usually use 8mm and 3mm beads, but I thought I'd use these little Swarovski beads, Swarovski pearl beads today. So these are slightly bigger. These are about 9 or 10mm, and the little ones are a little more than 3mm. They're closer to 4. But you can use anything around that size. I've got my long nose pliers, my wire cutters, round nose pliers and nylon pliers. If you don't have nylon pliers, don't worry. I just like to have these to hand. I use them for straightening the wires and flattening the weaves. If you're interested in buying tools, I've put links in the description below to where I buy my tools from. They're affiliate links, so if you're thinking about buying tools, please buy through my links. So I'm going to start with 3 wires, 4.5 inches from the beginning of the wire, so that's 11.5 centimetres. And then take your weaving wire and we'll start with 3 wraps around the bottom wire. And then we'll go 2 wraps around the bottom wire, come up between those 2 wires, 2 wraps around the top 2 wires, and we'll repeat that 8 times. So we go 2 wraps around the bottom wires, up between, 2 wraps around the top 2 wires, and we want a total of 8 repeats. So I've done 8 repeats and I've finished with 2 wraps around those bottom 2 wires. I'm going to cut that wire from the beginning, that tail. And we'll take the inner wire and we'll bend that directly down because that's where our bead's going to go. And we'll continue now working over 2 wires. So we're going to have 2 wraps around the bottom wire, working over 2. So this one is my bottom wire now. And then 2 wraps around both wires. And we'll keep repeating that. 2 wraps around the bottom single wire, 2 wraps around both wires. And depending on the size of your bead is how many repeats you have to do here. So my bead is quite large. I've got almost a 10mm bead. On my original video it was an 8mm bead, and I think I did 3 wraps around these wires instead of 2, but I'd like to keep the 2 wraps throughout. So we've got the same kind of theme, the same wraps on all the wires. So you need to do as many repeats as it takes to get around your bead. So we're going to put the bead on this wire, and that weave needs to come all the way around it. So I've done 18 repeats of that weave there. So now take your larger bead and pop it on that wire there. And where the bead comes out, where the wire comes out the other side, we want to bend it flat down like that. And then this weave bends around the top of the bead. So my 18 repeats was just enough to get around that bead. If you're using a slightly larger or smaller bead, then you'll have to adjust your weaves a little. So I'm going to just bend these over a little bit just to get them out the way. And this weave and this wire now need to come together because we're going to work across all three. So bring the weaving wire under the bare wire that's coming out of the bead, and we need to do the weave we did over here. So 2 wraps around that bottom wire, and then 2 wraps around the the bottom 2 wires, and then 2 wraps around the top 2 wires. So we go around the bottom 2 wires, then we come up between the bottom 2 wires, then we go around the top 2 wires twice, and we'll repeat that. 2 wraps around the bottom 2, 2 wraps around the top 2, and we need to have 8 repeats so it matches this side. So I've done 8 repeats of that weave there. I've finished with 2 wraps around the bottom 2, and then 3 wraps around the bottom wire so that it matches the other side. So now we're going to bring them together at the top. And lean on your bead a little bit to push the wires through the weave, to push your bead high, because that wire might, you can pull it down. That's what I'm saying. See the gap there? So you just want to push it up so it's sitting like that. So we're going to pull them together. I'm going to pull both these wires out at the top, both sides, so I can pull them together and we can see what we're doing. So we're making this nice teardrop shape. So when you're happy with the shape, we take the outer wires, we bend those out the way. And then the middle wires, I've got my weaving wire to the back out the way. These middle wires have to cross over each other. So keep adjusting your shape. So they cross over each other like that. And then holding on to the cross and the wires at the top, we're going to twist those wires around once. So that's what we've got so far. And when you're making earrings, or when I'm making earrings, I like to make them both at the same time so that they match each other. So from this point, they will both be different. So we need to make another one exactly the same as this. So take your other 3 wires and your other beads, jump back to the beginning of the video and make this again. So we've got 2 exactly like this. I'm just going to cut my weaving wire so I can use it in my other earring. So I've made another exactly the same. So these 2 are identical. And then it's from this point that they both do things to go in. So they end up as opposite mirror images of each other. So I've cut my weaving wire again. We'll start with these 2 wires here. So take your weaving wire and we'll attach to the bottom wire with just a couple of wraps, 2 wraps around that bottom wire. We'll attach 3 times. We'll wrap 3 times just to start with. Slide that down into place. And we're going to do the same weave as we did down the bottom here. So we'll go 2 wraps around both wires, 2 wraps around the bottom wire, 2 wraps around both wires, 2 wraps around the bottom wire, and we'll repeat that just on those 2 wires. So I've done 18 repeats of that weave. What I'm going to do, I'm going to scoop it around. I've just realised that I forgot to mention we're going to need ear wires and jump rings. I'll add it into the beginning. So we've gone around, scooped it around, and now we're going to add about another 12 repeats because we're going to scoop around again. So we're going to carry on weaving across these 2 wires, and we're going to do about another 12 repeats of that same weave. So it's actually hard to count the repeats because I've lost count now because of all the other repeats. So I've just done a handful of more repeats there, and I'm going to bend that around to make a second loop, and I need more repeats, so I'm going to add some more repeats to the wires. So I've done more repeats of that weave, and keep pushing your weave together as you go to keep it nice and tidy. So we're going to send that one around again, so we've got 2 loops. So now we're going to do a figure of 8 weave across these 2 wires. So we want to open them out. So we've got a nice gap between them. And we're going to do a figure of 8 weave. So we go over the opposite wire, and we're going to wrap 3 times. And then we come over the opposite wire and we wrap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Over the opposite wire, push it right down, wrap 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Over the opposite wire, and wrap 3 times. That's all you got to do. But you don't want to pull your wires together as you go. You want to keep this nice gap in between the wires. So keep repeating that down here, and what we'll need to do is shape this wire a little bit to come around the bead. We're going to shape this one a little bit too. So keep doing your repeats across this. We want to get down to just past where that wire goes into the side of the bead there. So I've carried on all the way down to nearly the bottom of the bead there, and I've added more coils on the last repeat, the last wire there. So not pushing the wires together as you go, and keep pushing your weave together. Don't let these wires come together, the big wires. And repeat this weave. Or down as far as you want, really. I just thought it'd be nice to finish closer to the bottom. I think on the original design it stopped about here, but I've carried it on a little bit. So what I want to do now, so that we don't get confused, is I want to catch up now with the other one. I want to take the other one and get it as far as we've got with this one, so we can keep matching them up as we go. So I'm going to cut that weaving wire off there, so I can use it on the other one. So take your other one, and now we're going to be starting on this side. So we're going to be on these two wires, and take your weaving wire, and we attach to the top wire this time. So 3 wraps around that top wire. Slide that down into place, and we have 2 wraps around both wires, 2 wraps around the top wire. And because they're both got to be the same, we've got to do the same amount that we did for the other one, so I think that was 18. So 18 repeats, 2 wraps around the top wire, 2 wraps around both wires. So I've cut the tail end of the weaving wire from the beginning, and I've done a load of those weave repeats. So now we're going to bend this weave around like we did with the other one. And you want it to be, whoops, you want it to be about the same size. And then I'm going to add another load of repeats so we can do a second curl there. So I've added a load of repeats. And I'm going to take that weave around again. I think I'm going to need some more repeats on there. My second loop is a bit smaller, so I just need to adjust that a bit. So the original one went around to the left, and then the one we've just done goes around to the right. So we've got mirror images of each other. So now we need to do the figure of 8 weave across the 2 wires. So we're going to pull these wires apart. We scoop this one around to go around the bead, and then this one needs to come out a bit. Put a bit of a scoop on that, and we want it to be the same as this one. They do pull together a little bit as you're working, so we need to do the same amount, and the only way we're going to do that is by keep comparing it as we go. So we'll start off, come halfway, and then see how we're looking to the matching up with the other one. So your figure of 8 repeat is you go around 3 wires, you go around 3 times, over the opposite wire, push it up as far as it'll go, And then we go 3 times around that wire, over the opposite wire, push that along as far as it'll go, and then 3 wraps around there. 1, 2, 3, and we'll just keep repeating that. So I've gone about just over halfway. We just need to try and make them the same as each other really. I think my wires need to be a little bit wider apart. You can pull them a little bit wider apart, but don't push them together because you'll crimple all your weaving wire. So I need to do a little bit more until it reaches the bottom of the bead there, or the bottom of the weave. So I need to add more repeats to that. So I've added more repeats. And I'm going to stop there because I think that's about the same. So I'm going to add a few more coils and cut the weaving wire. So now we're going to take these 2 wires, the other 2 that sit together, keeping them together. I'm going to bend them around and down, take them behind the weave, so the weave's going to sit to the front and these 2 wires are going to go to the back. So the 2 wires need to go above the bead. I want them to sit next to each other. And we're going to hold them in place with your thumb at the front and then carefully bend them around the back there. Now before we attach this weave down, let's secure these 2 wires from what we've just bent. So I'm going to cut a bit of length off them, just to make it a bit easier really. And take your round nose pliers, and I'm just going to bend them around the weave. Making sure I haven't misshaped them and they're still where I want them to be. Holding them down at the front, I'm just going to squeeze those wires flat against that weave. They're protruding over the edge a little bit, so I'm just going to cut that little bit of length off. We need to do that for the other one. If we do it in stages now, they should look similar to each other, hopefully. So we're going to take these 2. We're going to carefully bend them around. And I'm pressing them down flat, so they sit next to each other. That's how I want them to be. Then I want them to go behind the weave, to scoop around the top of the bead, but you don't want to pull them too much, because if you pull them out they're going to go behind the weave. So you want to kind of push them a little bit so they go in front of the weave, holding them in place at the front, bend them around the weave, and that is a little bit tough to do on your fingers. Wrap them around that weave like we just did, press it all down to secure it flat. So now we have 2 mirror images of each other, hopefully. It's never going to be perfect, handmade, or you always can see when something's handmade. We're not going to get it really spot on, but we can do our best. So now let's fix this weave down. So this wire we're just going to bend up here and leave it there. And then this one, if you hold it where you want it to sit, and then we're going to bend this around to the back and this one around to the front, so it kind of grips around the side there. If you get it wrong and you start rebending it, you're going to crimple all these wires in the middle, so you only really get one chance at doing that. And we've got to be really careful now, because we could spoil all this figure of 8 weave. But I want this wire to wrap around that back weave like we wrapped the other wire, so I'm going to clip that off because it just makes it easier to do. And then with round nose pliers, I'm going to wrap it around the weave. I'm holding it in place with my thumb because we don't want to misshape this. And that's my wire coming around there. So that looks how I want it to. So I'm going to squeeze that wire now in place. So I'm just pushing this down at the front so that it comes around the bead. I'm going to do that for the other one. So hold it in place where you want it to be. And this wire needs to come around to the front like that. And this wire needs to go around to the back. So hold in the front one and press the back around the side. Like that, that's how we want it to sit. So then holding it all together, we're going to do what we just did, cut this off and wrap it around the weave. So that's what we have so far. They're still looking very similar to each other. So now we're going to take this wire, and it's the one that's on the same side as the curls, not the one that's on the same side as the bare wires. So pick the one that's on the same side as the curls. And as this wrap went over to the left, this one's going to go over to the left. So you pull it out to the right, it goes over to the left. Pull it out to the right, it goes over to the left. We're coming over the front. And we're going to do a loop over that front weave there. And then we're going to go around and do another loop. But as we get to here, we're going to add our little bead. So take your smaller bead, add it to that wire. And then we're going to go around again. So we've gone around once, add your little bead and then go around again. Because I've used a 4mm bead, it's a little bit harder to get it to go into a loop. I think the smaller the bead, the easier it'll be to get it to not disturb the shape of that loop. So I've gone round twice. Not really quite happy with the shape of that. And then it goes around to the back, holding the front in place as you do, and we'll finish that off at the back. I'm going to have a play around with the shape of that. Looking a bit better now. And then we need to do the same with the other one. So taking the wire that's next to the loops, not this one that's next to the bare wires, we want this one that's next to the loops. This one came out to the left and went over to the right. So this one is going to go out to the left. That's Gracie snoring, if you can hear her. As if you could miss her. And then it goes around to the right. Happy little pug. So we scoop around again and add your bead. Thought I'd try something a bit different with these Swarovski pearls. I've not used them before. I think they look quite nice with the silver. So you've got to get that on and then go around again, and we'll copy the other one. So as you can see, we've got mirror image again with the curls with the beads on. So they do look opposites of each other, if that makes sense. So we just need to finish off that bead wire now across the back. And I'll do what I did for the others. I'll cut it short, and using my round nose pliers, I'll just pop it around that weave there. So 2 wires left. Oh, I'll just show you how I finish that. I just wrapped it around there with the round nose pliers. So 2 wires left to finish off now. This one at the back, the one that's at the top, sorry, I'm just going to cut that off and curl that. So I'll cut that off quite short, and with round nose pliers I'll just do a curl in that. So it just adds to the shape at the top there. I'm working in sterling silver today, and I've got fine silver from my weaving wire, and it's actually doing alright. Sometimes it's quite springy, but this seems quite nice today. Because I'm in the UK, I buy my wire from Metal Clays for You on eBay, and Scientific Wires, I think they're on Etsy. But we haven't got many wire suppliers in the UK. So I do buy from Rio Grande every now and then in bulk, because the shipping is quite expensive. So we're going to cut this one and just curl it. I want quite a small curl on it. So with my weaving wire, with my round nose pliers, just going to curl it around. Got to try not to scratch my bead with my pliers. Just to make a little curl there at the bottom. So we're going to need jumprings and ear wires, and I will add a note at the beginning that I forgot to mention that. I just need to finish off those 2 wires. So this one is obviously going to curl this way. Cut it short and curl it. And this one, cut it as you did and put a little curl on it. So that's it, finished. I just wanted to show you how to work the 2 at the same time using an old design from the first video. So I've added my jumprings and ear wires on there. I've put the bigger jump ring around the weave, the little jump ring around the big one, so that the ear wire is the right angle. Then attach the ear wire to the little one at the top. They've got a nice weight to them. They're quite dangly, they're not heavy. So I hope you found this tutorial easy to follow, and I've covered any questions that you had in that first video. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And when you're making these, when you're sharing your work, please mention me, a Kelly Jones Design. I prefer that you send to people here than people copy your work, so please don't show in progress images. Thanks everybody. See you in the next one. Bye. I just want to let you know that I've recently finished a PDF tutorial on this huge frame pendant. A PDF tutorial is a download from my Etsy shop, and it's got loads and loads of pictures and descriptions, so you go through at it, You go through it in your own time, at your own pace, and it's all there. It's fully descriptive. It's written for a beginner. Obviously you'd have to be an advanced beginner to make this. It's not as complicated as it looks. So just to let you know, that is now available in my Etsy shop.